I believe that we have like a good 3 to 5 year boom in this space before the inefficiencies in the market level out and the infrastructure is built out and things start to level out. And I think that you really just want to take advantage of this opportunity that we have. I do not believe that we will ever have another bull market like this again in my lifetime. You don't need to ask for permission whether you should start a blockchain-based business or a project, or if you have an idea that's good, just go do it. The biggest challenge in the blockchain space now is finding talent. It does not matter what your talent is. If you're an attorney, if you're a CPA, if you're a programmer, you're a software engineer, you're a hardware engineer, whatever talents that you have that work in the traditional business world, it also works in the blockchain space, because every cryptocurrency project is a business. Whether they believe that it's a business or not, it's a business that needs talent. So whether you're a social media manager, if you're just good on tweeting messages out, there's over 1,500 projects out there that need somebody to manage their Twitter account, right? And if you have money, then go start a blockchain business or get involved in it, use your capital. What happens if you don't have money? If you don't have money, go volunteer your time. I'll share this with you guys. Back in 2013, 2014, they started coming out with a new blockchain revolution called blockchain 2.0, like the second generation. The first generation of blockchains were the ones that were just clones of Bitcoin's software. And then the second generation are the ones that I consider the ones that wrote their own software, like NXT, like Ethereum. They're not based off of Bitcoin. They're based off a completely new code base and code. And so at that time, nobody knew what NXT was. And I went in there and I just volunteered, started making tutorials for them. You know, what it was is I was struggling to set their wallets. So I finally figured out how to do it. So I created tutorials, put it up online, shared it with other people. And I think I made like 20-something videos. I can't remember. It was not that many. It was 20-something videos. And people from the NXT community started donating to my account. I just put up an NXT address. Hey, if you guys like these videos, just donate to my account here. And those donations today can get me a couple of houses in Frisco. And for you guys watching at home, Frisco is probably the wealthiest neighborhood in North Dallas. Okay? So you can get 2 homes here. In Southern California, you get like a quarter of a home. All right? So just to give you guys an idea, okay? So I tell my wife all the time, I can't believe that I made these 20-something videos. I just volunteered. I took the time to do the research, share it with everybody. And then because of those videos and the content that I produced, it's allowed me to pay for a house today. So I'm just sharing with you, don't ask for permission. Go do it. And then if you make mistakes, learn from it and make it better. All right? Okay, so we're good to go, Jason? Okay, all right, so the next project, guys, that I want to share with you guys here is simply Vital Health, right? It's in the healthcare bucket along with many others. Now, this is a new bucket that, of cryptocurrencies that just started forming like in late 2017. The early generation cryptocurrencies were based on building it as a currency, as a protocol token and different things. They really didn't venture outside of the currency bucket until summer, late 2017. Our team started to notice that there was a bunch of these projects that would pop up that's related to healthcare. And when we started doing some research on it, we found out that there's a lot of friction. Remember that we want to eliminate the middleman. Blockchain is designed to eliminate the middleman, is designed to eliminate the permissionless system. So Simply Vital Health is one of the cryptocurrency projects that's focusing on fixing some of the problems. Fixin' is a word that comes from the Texas language, okay? All right, so anyway, Simply Vital Health is a healthcare project that's, cryptocurrency project that's focusing on the healthcare arena. And what they're doing is, there's an issue with when, like, I'll use myself as an example. So I've had 3 heart attacks already, okay? I'm 43 years old right now, and I had my first heart attack, like I think when I was 33, 34, and then a couple years later I had another one, and then a year later I had another one. Or it's just back to back to back, okay? And people always ask me, you know, hey, did you have a family history or whatever? And like the biggest cause of having heart attacks is when you're broke, when your ass is broke, okay? Growing up in the projects and you don't have a lot of money, you're always, trying to figure out ways to make money. In my opinion, that's the biggest cause of heart attacks, not all the fats and all the stuff you eat. Anyway, that's just personal opinion. And anyway, so when I went and got my, I had a really great, he was like an Army cardiologist, surgeon, so he put like 4 stents in my heart in Austin when I had the first heart attack. And then when I moved to Dallas, I needed to transfer all my medical records from Austin to the Dallas cardiologist. And there's all this friction and there's all these issues. And then after I had my my second and third heart attack, I thought I paid off some of the bills. And then I would get like a new bill like every 2-3 months. Like, hey, this is a bill for your heart attack, or your heart procedure. And I'm like, I thought I paid this stuff already. And then a few months later, I'd get another one. And then I couldn't tell if it was like the Nigerian prince trying to scam me, for my medical stuff, or if it's really legit hospital bills, and I would have to waste time calling them up. And I'm thinking like, why doesn't someone figure out a way to just consolidate all these bills and pay it all at one time and have the ability that I don't have to go through all this friction to get my medical records transferred from one clinic to the next? And it just boggles my mind. And then when I started doing some research on Simply Vital Health, now I started to see some of the politics, some of the friction, and some of the things that go on and why these problems exist. And I want to introduce you guys to Jake Dreier. Am I saying that correct? Dreier, okay. And he's the Director of Growth and Operations for Simply Vital Health. Everybody give him a warm welcome, guys, and he's going to explain to you, right?
Thank you, Ty. All right, so am I coming through? Okay. So I wanted to actually start by giving you a little bit of background of us as a company. So this is our leadership team, and our CEO, Kat, was a hospital administrator at Yale New Haven Hospital. And she started the company with the idea of solving real-life issues that she was seeing in the healthcare industry, which eventually led us to the projects that we're working on that I'm going to explain. And what's interesting, we've been able to, in a short amount of time, get a lot of really, really interesting partners in the space that are also being excited about what we're doing. We have a partnership with Athena Health. Boost VC is one of our equity backers, as is MedMetrics. We have strong ties to Yale. That's where I did my MBA. That's where Kat worked. And they're also one of our equity backers as well. And so what's exciting about this is the problem with healthcare and records spans a lot of different issues. So from our team and advisors, we have people that are working at the Department of Justice, people that are working at cybersecurity, people focused on healthcare, people focused on blockchain, because to solve this problem really needs a lot of different minds at the table figuring out how we can solve the frictions. So as Ty was speaking about the different skills you can put to use in the space, I'm actually a former high school teacher. So I was a history teacher. So to explain the problem with medical records, I'm going to give you a very brief, operative word, brief history on what's going on with medical records here in the United States. So around the 80s and 90s, with the rise of computers and digitization, we started to see a lot of hospitals starting to digitize their health records, because this is a faster, more efficient way of communicating. And around the mid-90s, with HIPAA, the government realized, well, we need to figure out a way to standardize this. And so the main concerns were privacy and security. How can we keep these records safe, and how can we make sure that people's privacy is secure? And when they did this, supply started to rise up to meet demand. There are hundreds of different data storage ways that you can store your data to make sure that in order to meet the requirements of HIPAA, it's both secure and also keeping it private. Now in 2009, during the Great Recession, when the government gave the stimulus package, there were $30 billion of that which went to help digitizing health records in the United States, because even healthcare is a very slow-moving industry. So even as of 2009, a lot of hospitals were still not digitizing their records. So that was actually like a very, very good thing, but it was like a shot in the arm of adrenaline of creating much more digitization of health records in the United States. But it came with it a different problem. With all of the different vendors and people that were working on securing this data, we started to run into an issue where they actually couldn't communicate with one another. And because of the concerns around privacy and security, this isn't actually something that you can just download a PDF and send somebody. And as a result, we have, to make a very long story short, we have locked up our data so well that we actually can't utilize it. In fact, a recent study found that under 30% of hospitals in the United States can actually communicate with other hospitals. So Ty's story of having multiple heart attacks is a great example. Let me tell you another example of how this could look. Imagine you're an oncology patient, you're a cancer patient. You go through a series of expensive and invasive tests, and then you want a second opinion, which is very, very common. It can take months for you to get your data at a cost of sometimes up to $1 a page, which means that you're looking at literally a bill of several hundred, if not $1,000, because these patient records are sometimes hundreds of pages long. So what happens is the patient in that position is going to redo the same invasive and expensive tests. I read an article that actually estimated there's about $25 billion in our healthcare industry, which is spent because of redundant testings like this, $25 billion, just to redo tests that have already been done because it's that difficult to move data from point A to point B. And this is what's really mind-blowing. We are just talking about patient data. There are tons of different versions of healthcare data. There's pharmaceutical data, there's clinical research data, there's data regarding clinical physician credentialing, there's data regarding supply chain logistics. We are talking, everyone's mind goes to patient and provider relationships because that's the most human, that's the most tangible. Promise all of us have stories that have experienced something like this. But again, that's only a sliver of healthcare data, which means, and they all have different symptoms, but the overlying trend is that it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and our healthcare industry is not living up to its full potential. So using blockchain technology, we have started to use blockchain to solve that. Now, one of the ways that we're solving that is using what's called a key pair system. The key pair system was actually pioneered by an MIT team, and one of our advisors, Dr. John Halamka, has introduced it in Beth Israel Hospital, which is one of Harvard Medical School's teaching hospital. And the way that the key pair system works is this, is basically a hospital requests access to data. The request is cryptographically signed. The blockchain confirms the legitimacy of this request. The request is approved and a key pair is issued, which then allows someone to securely access data. Now, it's interesting, this seems very, very basic, and when I show this to hospital CEOs, eyes start to glaze over a little bit. So this is the metaphor that I think about it. Basically what you're doing is you're allowing someone to securely peek in to somebody else's healthcare system. And now this is very important for HIPAA. One, because we're not changing how the data is stored, we're just allowing someone access. So the way that I describe it is this. Imagine you're checking into a hotel. You go online, you make the reservation. That's like the request and the smart contracts. Then you go to check in and the teller looks at your reservation and looks at your ID to make sure that they match. That's validating the cryptographic signature. Then they hand you a key. But that key doesn't open up every room in the hotel. It only opens up the room that you're allowed to stay in for the amount of time that your reservation was supposed to be. So that's the smart contracts executing. The person can access the data for the amount of time that they're allowed, only the data that they're allowed. And then what do? They create a record. This person just checked in. That's the audit trail. That's keeping track of every person that's come in and accessed this data. But again, this is what's really, really interesting about this is we're using this system to create Health Nexus, which is an open source HIPAA compliant blockchain protocol. This is another place where when I say we're building an open source HIPAA compliant blockchain protocol and I put up this graph, all the eyes that are in the hospital industry start to glaze over. So let me explain this in another metaphor. Imagine an old school Nintendo, right? You know, you got the old school Nintendo NES, it came with Mario. Imagine someone gave it to you for free. It came with some basic games like Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, but anyone could develop games for it. That's what we're doing with Health Nexus. It's free. It comes with some initial functionality of just being able to move healthcare data from point A to point B, but anyone can build off of it, which means any of these other issues that we described about solving healthcare data can be addressed. And just like, imagine you have a free Nintendo, it's free, but you still have to run it on electricity to plug it in. You still need the token to execute smart contracts. But the idea is that because it's free and open source, anyone can build off the amazing potential of these different ideas for solving healthcare problems in the system. So I know you can't read this, which is fine because I just kind of wanted to show you the images. So for instance, the way that it works is developers can build on Health Nexus, and then healthcare providers can access it. So we already have a revenue-generating healthcare product that will eventually live on Health Nexus. It's called Connecting Care. I don't know to go into great detail about it, but it works with value-based care and allows providers in bundled payment programs to forecast their costs and communicate with providers at different facilities. We have another example of two Harvard physicians that are actually going to be building on Health Nexus to build a game, an app, that relates to behavioral health and change management. And what's exciting, again, these are, because it's this open source system, these are just many of the different examples of how the singular problem of changing healthcare and exchanging healthcare data is holding back this entire system. So that's actually it. We're in the middle of our token sale, so if you have questions, please reach out to me. Here's my email address, and I'll actually stop talking at you now because it's been a while and it's post-lunch. So I'll thank you for your time and hit me with any questions you have.
Any questions, guys?
I'm sorry, but have you guys thought about how Apple is actually getting into like the healthcare data space, and are there any plans to possibly have any sort of like partnership with them or work with them, or have your protocol work with Apple and all the iOS devices out there?
So that's a great question. I mean, lots of people are getting into the healthcare data space, and so it can mean lots of different things. I think the beautiful thing about this is, it's free and open source, so any person that wants to build off of it can. Right now, a lot of the conversations that we're having are people that have specific apps in mind for what to build. They have a problem with credentialing data. They have a problem with sharing clinical research data, that sort of thing. But again, the beauty of it being free and open source means that literally anybody that sees potential in solving the issue of exchanging healthcare data is able to build off of it. Yes?
Part of the cost in the duplication of tests is physicians and other healthcare providers being able to access that previous information quickly. So for example, I'm a physician and a patient comes for an operation. I need to access an EKG that may have been done within a couple days, but I can't hold up the operating room for very long. So how quickly can a clinician access this information?
Yeah, that's a great question. Literally, as long as it takes to request and approve, which also means that an important point, and we see this a lot with healthcare data, it's important to not boil the ocean. Meaning that right now, when we hear this, our mind automatically goes to a place where, like, I've been living in Texas, and then I'm moving to Massachusetts, and they need to be able to communicate. Right now, and this is even more flabbergasting, the use cases of people we're describing are actually groups that live under the same umbrella. I'm talking like 4 to 5 hospitals in the same city or the same region that are under the same body, but even they can't communicate, right? I mean, and that's shocking that not even thinking about people at hospitals at different locations, hospitals under the same sort of umbrella can't communicate. And so the early use cases for this, and I think it would be really arrogant to say that we're going to eliminate entire need for duplicate tests. And I think that you bring up a really good point, around, like there'd be times where, like, if a life is on the line, you have to make that decision. I think that some of the early use cases will be, it'll be important to test with, I would say, people that are working on the same umbrella to be able to cut down on communication to establish the line, because the request can be instant, but you still need someone at their end to, like, approve it, right? Which takes some form of human communication to know that, hey, I'm a physician at this facility, I'm requesting this. So in answer to your question, it can be very, very quickly as long as, click request, approve it. But to your use case, I think that brings up a really good point around use case that would probably fall outside the scope of what you would want to be testing in initial stages, because that's something that's probably more, 2 or 3 years down the line as opposed to something you'd want to implement right away. That's a good question.
Are there currently any hospitals using this, or?
Yeah, great question. So this, as in Health Nexus, isn't live yet. So the answer to who's using Health Nexus, the answer is no. But right now, like I said, we're building up a community of people that are interested in building off of it. Our product, Connecting Care, we have 2 clients. One's a hospital and one's a skilled nursing facility. We're currently in clinical implementation with the skilled nursing facility, and we're probably starting with our second hospital, which is Hartford Hospitals, probably mid Q2 of 2018 to be doing pilots.
And why do you really want to use blockchain technology for this solution? Can't you not just use a database with high security and different levels of access? And maybe can you not solve it from the legacy way of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, if I'm hospital A, so I'm not a technical person, so I won't get too deep into this. But basically, the way that the blockchain allows the key pair into the system is what's called building a client or a gatekeeper. And it's just a little bit of code that sits in front of your database that says, when I get a key pair request from the blockchain, I'll open my door and allow the data to be accessed. If I'm hospital A and you're hospital B, if I wanted to not use blockchain, I would have to build an incredibly expensive bridge between us with an expensive middleman who then is going to make sure that our data communicates and we standardize. There's lots of meetings to figure out who's going to control the data, do we have equal rights to it, et cetera, et cetera. And if I want to do it again with another hospital, I'd have to go through that same process. So once you build one bridge, you've built one bridge. If you want to communicate with another hospital, you have to do that again. The beauty of a client and gatekeeper is you build it once, and then anybody that uses the blockchain will be able to access via that gatekeeper or that client code. Now, on top of that, this is talking phase 2 or 3. Now, in the future, there's actually really fascinating work about being able to use using the blockchain for distributed data and distributed data sources for healthcare technology. Right now, that isn't good for 2 reasons. One is that right now technology with healthcare and the actual data storage on blockchain isn't very good. It's not very efficient. Second thing is there's major concerns around HIPAA compliance. So HIPAA's not ready, blockchain isn't ready, but I think a lot of people are saying, looking down the line, where is this going to be in 3 to 4 years? And that is, I think, one of the major hopes, that in 3 to 4 years, blockchain could be at a point and HIPAA compliance could be at a point where we'd be able to do that. And then, that's when the fun really, really starts, with people being able to have an immutable record for their data and have all their data stored in one place. That's really exciting. But again, that's probably version 6, 7.0 in the future. This is the use case, I think, right now, which would be a really, really good initial toe dip in the water for the healthcare industry to still solve a problem while still maintaining the security and auditability, which is really important to them as an industry. Yeah, you're right. Right now, you would describe, everyone would need to agree. The advantage to what we're doing with Health Nexus is, again, someone with 4 to 5 hospitals in their system, they can still use it to solve their problems, even if not anyone is, you don't need mass consensus in order to do that. Ty.
So in a way, all the other hospitals need to also jump on the board of blockchain using your solution or similar other solution. That's when the most leverage of.
Yeah, and actually that's also a big misconception. Right now we're using we're going to be using the Ethereum blockchain. So if a hospital A wants to use it, it doesn't matter if they're the only ones that are using it to validate, because the only thing that's happening is the blockchain and the smart contracts are validating the cryptographic signature on the key request. So you don't need mass adoption of all the healthcare sort of community to jump at once and say that they're going to adopt it. Yeah. Was that going to be your question about Ethereum?
Yeah, I was wondering if it ran on Ethereum, but to piggyback on that, because I was wondering, will there be any plans in the future to create your own blockchain platform in order for security? Because CryptoKitties basically crippled Ethereum for several days.
It's so funny. I was in a meeting again, some hospital execs, and we told them about CryptoKitties, and they just thought it was the most bizarre thing in the world. So the answer to your question, yes, and this is done much more in detail in our white paper, which you can check out. But we are eventually going to go to a public permission blockchain where all the nodes have to pass HIPAA compliant tests. Right now, the way that we're doing is we're having we're running tests to make sure all the nodes on it are secure. But again, once we have, I would say, built up a strong enough consortium, then we're actually going to then start our own HIPAA compliant blockchain protocol with our own HIPAA compliant nodes using this public permissioned aspect. So yeah, that's a really good question.
All right. Any other questions, guys? I'm coming.
Thank you.
I see you got the token cell going on right now. Do you have any, advisors that are on your board, or prominent names or faces, such as Vitalik or anybody that you mentioned Ethereum, anybody in the back end of your business model?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would really advise you to go to our website where you can see an overview of all of our advisors in the blockchain space. We have Tyrion as one of our advisors. From a legal aspect, we have Cooley as our legal representation, which is they're one of the fields from a legal aspect. And like I said, it's a really good mix of our board of hospital, cybersecurity, blockchain. Really good mix there. So again, I would check out our website here, and you'll be able to see in greater detail the background of our advisors and our teams that we're working with. Yeah.
Thanks, Jake. Just want to let everyone know, my name is Russell Siebert. I've been in healthcare technology for 24 years, and I'm actually an investor in the ICO already, so happy to answer any questions y'all might have from that perspective.
Thank you, Russell. Awesome. Well, Ty.
No.
Okay.
No more questions?
All right, awesome.
Okay.
Well, I am unfortunately having to take off for a flight relatively soon, so I won't be able to sort of stay and mingle afterwards. Please take down my email if you want to chat more. Would love to talk with you, and thank you so much for your time.
Okay.